Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of B-cell cancers
Oh, yeah.
um, and the really exciting treatments that are emerging, especially
Absolutely.
Rituximab biosimilars.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a fascinating article from SA Genie called Deciphering B-cell cancers with a Rituximab biosimilar.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to learn how this treatment is not just helping so many people right now,
Right.
but also how it might actually reshape the future of healthcare, then buckle up.
Yeah.
Let's dive in.
So B-cell cancers are pretty complex
Okay.
because we're not talking about one disease here. We're
Oh,
talking about a whole bunch of them.
got it.
And all of them originate from our B cells,
Interesting.
which are actually the defenders in our immune system.
Oh, wow.
They produce antibodies to fight off infections.
So these are actually the good guys, and they're turning against us.
In a way, you could say that,
Okay.
because in B-cell cancers, these B cells multiply out of control. And what makes it even trickier is that they can develop at different points
Okay.
in a B cell's life cycle.
Oh,
So
exactly.
that means each cancer can look and behave differently.
So it's almost like they're an enemy that's constantly changing their uniform or something.
It's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah. How do you even begin to treat something that diverse?
Well, most B cells have this thing called the CD20 antigen
Okay.
on their surface. And it's like this perfect target for treatments.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So is that where Rituximab comes in?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I've heard it called a revolutionary treatment. Was
Yeah.
it the first to actually use that as a target?
Yeah. So Rituximab, it's a monoclonal antibody, which is a very specialized treatment.
It is.
And it's designed to basically lock onto that CD20 antigen.
Right.
And then it triggers this multi-pronged attack on those cancerous B cells.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Wait, multi-pronged.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like blocking them from multiplying.
No, it's way more powerful than that.
Well,
So first, it actually signals your body's natural defenses
okay.
to directly attack those cancer cells that are marked with the rituximab antibody.
Oh, so it's like calling in backup.
Exactly. It's like calling in the National Guard.
Got it.
But there's more.
Okay.
So rituximab also activates special cells in our immune system
Okay.
that act like assassins,
Okay.
specifically seeking out and eliminating those tagged cancer cells.
So you've got like a targeted attack
Yes.
and then assassins
Yeah.
going after these cancer cells.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
It is. And then if that wasn't enough,
R-
rituximab can actually trick those cancer cells into self-destructing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, talk about a triple threat.
Triple threat. Yeah, that's incredible.
It is.
So this is obviously super effective.
Yes.
I can see why it's had such a huge impact on treating conditions like non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Absolutely.
But you mentioned earlier that it's also been a game changer in other ways.
It has, yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, because rituximab is a biologic, which is a complex drug made from living cells.
Okay.
It really opened the door for a whole new class of treatments,
Okay.
biosimilars.
Okay.
And that's where our Assay Genie article comes in.
Got it.
It's all about these rituximab biosimilars and the potential they hold.
Okay, I'm really intrigued, but before we get into biosimilars,
Sure.
can we just back up for a second and talk about
Of course.
what the world looked like for people with B-cell cancers
Yeah.
before Rituximab?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Before rituximab, treatment options were much more limited.
Okay.
Chemotherapies were a common approach,
Right.
which are basically these powerful but non-specific drugs that attack all rapidly dividing cells.
Okay.
And they came with some really harsh side effects.
Right.
And sadly, the prognosis for many patients wasn't as optimistic as it can be today.
Wow.
Yeah,
So it sounds like Rituximab really did shift the landscape of B-cell cancer treatment.
it did.
Now, before we dive into this fascinating world of biosimilars,
Mhm.
we need to kind of unpack what exactly they are.
Of course.
Right.
Right, so the term biosimilar might sound like it's just a copycat version.
Okay.
But it's much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
So they are highly similar versions of existing biological medicines like rituximab,
Okay.
and they're designed to match the original in terms of safety and effectiveness,
Right.
but they're produced through a different process.
Oh, so they're not just like generic copies.
Yo.
They're more like
They're carefully crafted alternative.
carefully crafted alternatives. I like that.
Yeah.
But how can we be sure that they are just as effective as the original Rituximab if they aren't exact replicas?
That's the beauty of the science behind biosimilars.
Okay.
They go through this incredibly rigorous development process,
Okay.
which includes in-depth analysis and testing
Right.
to ensure that they mirror the original drug's quality and effectiveness.
Okay.
So it's not just about mimicking the recipe.
Got it.
It's about achieving the same outcome.
So less about being a perfect clone and more about
Exactly.
achieving that same goal
Yeah, exactly.
of effectively treating those B-cell cancers.
Yeah.
That leads us right into the heart of this Assay Genie article.
It does.
What are some of the key takeaways about rituximab biosimilars that really stood out to you?
Well, one of the most striking findings is that rituximab biosimilars are not only proving to be just as effective as the original drug in clinical trials,
Right.
but they offer the potential for significant cost savings.
Wow.
Imagine the impact that this could have on healthcare systems globally.
That's incredible.
It is.
But I have to ask, how do biosimilars achieve these cost savings without compromising quality?
Well, the cost savings come from various factors,
Right.
including optimizing the production processes
Got it.
and increased competition in the market,
Okay.
but absolutely not from cutting corners in development or testing.
Okay.
They are subject to the same rigorous regulatory scrutiny as the original biologic. To ensure their safety and efficacy,
Right.
it's about making those life-saving treatments more accessible
Right.
without compromising quality.
So in essence, it's about leveraging scientific advancements
Yes.
to create a more sustainable and equitable healthcare system.
Precisely.
And that concept of accessibility and affordability is really just the tip of the iceberg here.
It is.
Because what's truly fascinating is that rituximab biosimilars
Yeah.
could potentially be used for much more than just cancer treatment.
Oh, yeah.
There's more.
There's more.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Remember how we talked about B cells being involved in the immune system?
Yes.
Well, researchers are also exploring the use of rituximab biosimilars for autoimmune diseases.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are conditions.
Where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues.
So instead of fighting cancer cells, these biosimilars could actually help regulate
Potentially.
the immune system
Yeah.
in autoimmune diseases.
It's a really exciting area of research.
That's incredible.
Because those diseases also involve overactive B cells.
Right?
So the same principles of targeting and controlling them with rituximab could apply.
Wow. So we're talking about a whole new frontier of possibilities here.
Absolutely. It's very exciting.
This is truly groundbreaking.
It is.
From treating B-cell cancers to potentially revolutionizing the management of autoimmune diseases. Rituximab biosimilars seem poised to change the healthcare landscape as we know it.
I think so.
I can't wait to delve deeper into the specifics of their development and all the research that's paving the way for their expanded use.
Me too. There's so much more to uncover about the science, the potential, and the impact of rituximab biosimilars.
Yeah, this is just the beginning
Yeah, it is.
of an amazing journey into the world of rituximab biosimilars.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon with part 2.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're picking up right where we left off, talking about rituximab biosimilars, those potentially game-changing alternatives to the original rituximab, which has been this amazing breakthrough treatment for B-cell cancers.
Yeah.
And before the break, we were talking about how they could potentially be used for even more than just cancer, like helping people with autoimmune diseases too.
Absolutely.
But before we get there, I kind of want to rewind a little bit and talk about the testing process.
Okay, yeah.
I know these biosimilars, they go through really rigorous testing.
Oh, yeah. It's incredibly rigorous.
Can you walk me through how that works? Like,
Yeah.
what does it actually take to get a biosimilar approved and out there available for patients?
Well, scientists start by really getting to know the original rituximab molecule.
Okay.
Like inside and out, mapping its structure, understanding how it functions.
So it's almost like they're creating this blueprint before they even start to build the biosimilar?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
They need to know every nook and cranny of that original to make a biosimilar.
Right.
That's truly comparable.
Got it.
Once they've got that blueprint, the next step is preclinical testing.
Okay, so that's where they're actually creating the biosimilar and
Right.
testing it out in the lab.
Yeah, so this involves lab studies and sometimes animal studies
Okay.
to assess two main things. Is it safe?
Right.
Does it have any unexpected side effects?
Got it.
And second, does it actually target those CD20 antigens we talked about earlier?
Right, because that's how rituximab works.
Yes.
It latches onto those antigens on B cells.
Exactly.
So they're making sure this biosimilar is hitting that same target,
Yes.
doing its job,
Yep.
and not causing any harm.
Exactly.
So then if the preclinical trials show some promising results, meaning the biosimilar seems safe
Right.
and effective,
Yes.
things move on to clinical trials.
They do.
And this is where it gets really
It
interesting.
does, yeah, because now we're talking about testing it in humans.
Okay, so now this is where they actually see how it performs in patients
Yes.
with B-cell cancers.
Right. And these clinical trials are incredibly thorough. They're not just assuming it's going to work the same way.
Right.
They're comparing it head-to-head with the original Rituximab.
Okay, with that gold standard.
You got it. And all of this data from the lab studies to the clinical trials
Right.
is then submitted to regulatory agencies like the FDA here in the US or the EMA in Europe.
Okay.
And these agencies have the tough job of reviewing all the evidence
Right.
and deciding whether to approve this biosimilar for use.
So it's not just the company saying, take our word for it.
No, no, no.
They have to actually prove it to these independent experts who are
Yes.
really focused on patient safety.
Exactly. Patient safety is the top priority.
Okay.
The approval process is super rigorous.
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure that any biosimilar that reaches patients is both effective and safe.
That makes sense. Now, let's say a biosimilar
Mm-hmm.
gets the green light from the FDA or the EMA.
Yeah.
Does that mean that doctors can just start switching patients over from the original drug to the biosimilar?
Well, that's a great question, and it gets a little complicated.
Right.
So some biosimilars might be designated as interchangeable.
Interchangeable.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means that they've met even more stringent criteria
Okay.
to show that they can be substituted for the original drug
Okay.
without any difference in how they work or any increased risk of side effects.
So think of it like swapping out a brand name ingredient for the generic version
Yeah.
in a recipe.
Exactly. The end result should be the same.
Okay, but you're saying not all biosimilars
Right.
get that interchangeable designation.
Correct.
So the decision of whether to switch a patient from the original Rituximab to a biosimilar
Mm-hmm.
is really up to the doctor and the patient.
It is.
They have to consider the individual situation,
Absolutely.
any other health conditions they might have,
Right.
and the specifics of that biosimilar in question.
Exactly.
So it's not one size fits all,
No.
which makes sense when we're talking about something like cancer treatment. But I think the key takeaway here is that these biosimilars undergo incredibly rigorous testing,
They do.
and they have to meet really high standards
Yes.
before they even reach the market.
Absolutely. And it's not like the research stops there.
Right.
Scientists continue to study biosimilars even after they're approved,
Wow.
looking at long-term effects,
Okay.
how to refine that production process, even exploring new uses for them.
It's like this whole field of biosimilars is constantly
It is.
evolving and pushing the boundaries of what's possible
Yeah.
in healthcare.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
We've talked about the science.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the approval process.
Yeah.
Even touched on some of the possible uses beyond cancer.
Right.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
One of the biggest selling points of biosimilars
Mm-hmm.
is that they could make these life-saving treatments much more affordable.
Absolutely.
Is that actually happening?
Well, it's still early days,
Mhm.
but the initial data is promising. So rituximab biosimilars are generally priced lower than the original drug.
Okay.
And that has the potential to make a huge difference
Yeah.
in healthcare costs, not just for patients,
Right.
but for insurance companies,
Right.
even entire healthcare systems.
So we could be talking about significant savings
We
that
could.
can actually impact people's lives.
Yes. And it's not just about saving money.
Right.
It's about what those savings can enable.
Right.
Think about countries where access to these expensive medications is a major barrier to healthcare.
Yeah.
Biosimilars could really help bridge that gap, allowing more people to get the treatments they need,
Right.
regardless of their income or where they live.
It's like we're talking about democratizing access to these treatments,
Yeah,
which is,
it's a powerful concept.
yeah, it really is. And it kind of ties into this broader conversation we're having
It does.
about how to make healthcare more equitable
Mm-hmm.
and accessible
Yeah,
for everyone.
for everyone.
But of course, with any big shift in healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be challenges and things to consider.
Absolutely.
Are there any potential downsides to this rise of biosimilars?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is making sure that patients and healthcare providers
Right.
are well informed about them.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of misinformation out there,
Okay.
and some people might be hesitant to embrace them, especially when we're talking about something as serious as cancer.
Of course, it's like anything new.
Right.
There's always going to be a learning curve.
Right.
You have to build that trust.
Exactly. Education is key.
Yeah.
It's so crucial for people to understand how biosimilars are developed,
Right.
the rigorous testing they undergo, the regulations that ensure their safety.
Mm-hmm.
Open and honest conversations between doctors and patients are so essential too.
So transparency and communication are key
Absolutely.
to building confidence.
Yes.
And then is there anything else that could be a challenge?
Well, another challenge is making sure that the introduction of biosimilars
Okay.
doesn't disrupt the market for the original drugs.
Right.
We don't want to stifle innovation
Right.
or discourage companies from investing in research and development
That's a really good point.
of new treatments.
It's all about finding that right balance,
Yes.
making things more affordable, but still encouraging those advancements.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that balance is something that healthcare experts around the world are actively discussing and debating right now.
Wow. It's an evolving conversation.
It is.
And it's definitely one worth
Staying informed about.
staying informed about, yeah.
Yes.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part.
We have.
The science behind Rituximab biosimilars,
Mm-hmm.
how they're developed, approved their potential benefits
Yes.
for patients and healthcare systems,
Absolutely.
even some of the challenges that come with this new approach.
Right.
It's clear that these biosimilars have the potential to be a game changer,
They do.
but it's also a really complex landscape.
It is, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
We're witnessing a potential paradigm shift
Right.
in healthcare, and there's so much to learn and explore.
I'm excited to hear more about what the future holds for biosimilars.
Me too.
What can listeners expect in our final part of this deep dive?
Well, in part 3, we're going to take a closer look at some real-world examples of how Rituximab biosimilars are already being used.
Great.
And the impact they're having.
Okay.
We'll also explore some of those exciting possibilities for their use in the future,
Okay.
particularly for those autoimmune diseases we talked about earlier.
Something we have a lot more to unpack.
We do.
Join us for that final part of our deep dive
Yes.
into Rituximab biosimilars as we explore how this fascinating science is really making a difference in people's lives. Welcome back to the deep dive. It's been quite a journey
It has.
exploring Rituximab biosimilars. We've gone from understanding how they work to the potential impact they could have on healthcare.
Absolutely.
But I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the science.
Yeah.
Are we actually seeing these biosimilars making a real difference in people's lives right now?
We are moving beyond that theoretical and seeing real-world evidence that Rituximab biosimilars are living up to the hype.
That's great.
Studies have compared them to the original Rituximab in treating B-cell cancers, and the results consistently show they're just as effective.
That's fantastic news.
It is.
Because it's one thing to have those promising results in the lab, but to see it translate into real benefits for patients, that's amazing. What kind of impact are we actually seeing?
Well, for one, those cost savings we discussed are starting to translate into wider access to treatment.
Okay.
Some countries have integrated Rituximab biosimilars into their national healthcare systems, which means more people can afford to get that treatment that they need.
That's a huge win because we're talking about creating a more equitable healthcare system where cost is no longer a barrier to those life-saving treatments.
Yeah, and the impact goes even further.
Okay, how so?
Well, the availability of biosimilars could change how doctors approach treatment plans in the first place.
Interesting.
So if they know a safe and effective biosimilar is available at a lower cost, they might be more likely to prescribe it earlier in the course of treatment.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about treating those who already have access, but potentially reaching more people sooner, which could lead to better outcomes.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to circle back
to
those possibilities with autoimmune diseases.
Yes.
We were talking about how Rituximab biosimilars might be used to treat conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus.
Yes, it's an area of active research. There are clinical trials underway exploring the use of Rituximab biosimilars for various autoimmune diseases. It's still early, but the initial findings are really promising.
That's amazing.
Imagine if we can offer a more affordable and accessible treatment option for these conditions.
It's pretty incredible to think about how far we've come.
It is.
It feels like we're really on the cusp of this major shift in how we approach not just cancer treatment, but a whole range of diseases.
Yeah.
It's exciting and a little bit overwhelming all at the same time.
I agree. I think while there's still work to be done, it's important to acknowledge the incredible progress that's been made.
Right.
So we've gone from this revolutionary new treatment with rituximab to a whole new class of treatments with these biosimilars.
So we're just scratching the surface.
We're just at the beginning.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the one thing that you hope our listeners take away from this exploration of rituximab biosimilars?
I think I just hope listeners come away with the sense of hope and possibility. Because biosimilars really represent a paradigm shift in healthcare. One that prioritizes accessibility, affordability, and continued innovation. They're not a cure-all.
Right.
But they are this powerful tool that can change.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure. It's been great talking with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. And we hope that you've learned something new and that you'll continue to explore this fascinating world of biosimilars and how they might reshape healthcare.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious and keep on learning.